Hi everyone, my name is Alex Jafari and I'm here with Irfan going through computer science chapter 1.2 from information to classes and objects. Irfan, are you ready?
Hi guys, I'm so ready.
Excellent. All right, so today we're going to learn about classes in computer science. Now, before we get started, we want to just do a quick overview of what we learned yesterday, or I guess the previous video. Irfan, do you want to do a quick overview of what we learned last class?
Of course. So we learned that from information to data was the title of our last chapter, last section to be more accurate. And um, we learned that there are some numbers and words that we represent them as strings and ints in the data world. And there are doubles as well that represent the decimal numbers.
That's exactly right. Perfect. Do you remember what we learned about comments?
Yes, we also learned that comments are so important to um, show a more certain pathway through the coding process, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a little behind you, but I keep writing the wrong word. Um, so we learned about these different data types, but we learned that these data types on their own don't really mean anything unless we can add comments um, for the programmer or the developer to know like the significance between these data types. So like what does 80.5 mean? Or what does 193 mean? And these are all data types that we can express better and more efficiently with comments. Does that all sound right?
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect. All right. So, like you said, last section was about information to data. This section is going to be information to classes and objects. Now, here's the thing. Very, very simple things can be, communicated and represented as ints or doubles and strings. But in actuality, things in the real world are a lot more complicated. Wouldn't you agree that?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. So, if we were to represent you, Irfan, um, we learned how to represent your name with a string, your age with an int, and your weight with a double. But how would we represent the entire person? Well, that's where classes come from. So, a class is essentially, um, think of it as a group of a bunch of these like smaller, more simple data types, and a more complex uh, data is a class. So, for example, if we want to represent Irfan or Alex or someone else, we would have a class person. So, a person will have a name as a string, age as an int, they might have a weight. And what would you consider the data type for a weight to be?
Double.
Yeah, precisely, because it's not going to be a whole number. And then perhaps a height as well. What do you think is a good data type for a height?
I think that's going to be a double.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a double would make perfect sense. So this right here, this can be called a class diagram. So even without showing you any code, if I show you this diagram, you should be able to know exactly what you need on how to represent this with a programming language. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So let's actually represent this. Let's actually see how it would work in code. So first of all, the very, very first thing that you should always, always, always do is write a purpose statement. So, and the purpose statement would obviously be a comment because it's for like other developers. So, for example, we can say we want to represent, the health information about a person. Remember that these two slashes indicate a comment in the programming language of Java. So anything after that doesn't matter. So then on a new line, we say class. So that's a keyword, that's a Java keyword. Person, and class names should always be capitalized. And they should be the name of, whatever makes sense for the class. And then we open the brace. And typically Java just closes a brace for us. But this shows, okay, anything in the middle of this is going to be the class body. So far, so good?
Makes sense. So far, so good.
Excellent. All right. So going back to our diagram here, what information do we need to represent about a person?
Name, age, height, and weight.
Excellent, yes. So first we'll start with the name. So that's going to be of type string. So we write the type first. This is the type in Java. String. And then we're going to give it a variable name. So we're just going to call it name. And we're going to end it with a semicolon. So in Java, the format is you start with a type, you start with the name of whatever variable it is. In this case, it is actually name as well. And then you end it with a semicolon. Now, what makes a difference between good programmers and excellent programmers, Irfan?
The comments that you should add.
Perfect, exactly. So like, what name is this? So we can add a comment that this is only going to be, let's say, a first name. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you want to dictate how you would do the age?
I would write first int.
Yep.
And after that, as the name of it, I should add age.
Sounds good.
And then a semicolon.
Perfect. Anything else?
For the comments. Age of the person, maybe.
Right, but is it age in, like, does this number mean, 1995? Does it mean 21? Does it mean 21 years, 21 months?
Years old, maybe.
Years, yes, perfect. So this is actually a great point. You don't want the comments to be just something super simple that the name of the variable can give anyway. In those cases, you don't need a comment, but typically things are a little bit more ambiguous than what they seem. So right now, this really helps that, okay, this is going to be in years. It's not going to be, the year of birth or how many months this person has been alive. All right.
Makes sense.
Perfect. So then we'll quickly do weight and height. And could you help me with the comments for weight and height? Do you have any suggestions?
Kilogram and centimeter, maybe?
Yes, perfect, because we want to figure out the units for this. Units always matter. So that's like a great comment. Excellent. So now you can see from the diagram here, we have class person. So class is a Java keyword. That's where Java knows, okay, you're going to tell me about a class. And then you're going to say the name of the class. So this one person makes sense. And then inside the brackets, inside the braces here, we're going to have all these fields, is what they're called, of a person. So these are called fields. All right, excellent. So now that we have a way to categorize persons, how do we make an Irfan? How do we represent Irfan? Well, in a separate part of the code, we can say new. This is also a Java keyword. It shows that it's going to be a new person, or it's going to be a new instance. And then we're going to say, well, it's going to be a new person. So we're going to write the class name, person. And then right here, if you leave your IDE just like this, your whatever you're coding on, it's going to complain, because what will it complain about? Well, it expects a person to have 4 fields. So we need to pass in these 4 data points to the person. So first of all, and it has to be in order. It has to be in the same order that you've defined it. So first of all, we're going to write their name. So in quotes, we can just write Irfan. And then what does it expect?
It expects the age.
Yes, perfect. So age in years, let's say 21. And then it expects the weight in kilograms as a double. So you can't just write 80. It has to be 80.5 or 80. Oh, well, if you just write 80, typically it just converts it to 80.0. But we just want to be explicit. And then we can say 191. Close brackets. All right. Whoops. And so with this, Java knows, okay, you want me to create a new instance of a person class, and these are the data that you want to give it. If for whatever reason you make a mistake and you write new person, and instead you write like 21, then Irfan, and then like 191 and 80.5, the IDE, whatever you're programming in. So for example, like it could be the JetBrains, IntelliJ, or Visual Studio, or whatever else that you're using, will complain and will say, I don't know what you're trying to do here, because the person class that I know about expects a string first. I don't know what to do with 21. And then afterwards, it expects an int, a number, and I don't know what to do with, Irfan. But with that mistake, the ID will catch it. The compiler is what we call it. Will catch it and say, no, you're making a mistake. You want to make sure that you're, saying the right data in order. But if you make
so it has to be in order.
Yes, exactly. It has to be in order. But if you make a different mistake and you write new person, Irfan, age is 21, instead of weight, if you write 191 and then 80.5, let's just take a quick look with our person class. So we first expect a string, we get that. We then expect an int, we get that. And then we just expect a double, right? We don't know that this cannot be, the weight, and this cannot be the height. So with this example, even though it's like the programmer knows that it's wrong, the IDE won't know it's wrong. So it will essentially be okay with it. That's why it's super important to add these comments in here, so that when you make a mistake, or to name your variables correctly, so that when you have two doubles, you can say, oh, yeah, this makes sense. Or, no, this doesn't make sense. Someone cannot be 191 kilos and only 80 centimeters. That's probably not biologically feasible. Does that make sense?
All clear.
Perfect. Excellent. Now, how can we actually create this new person? Java needs this other part. So when we have the fields here, underneath it, we need to also have a constructor. A constructor basically says, when you give me this, I will actually create a person. Okay? I will actually create an instance of this object. And the way it works is that inside the class person, so I'm just going to write the first thing here. Class person. Remember how we had all the fields?
Yeah.
Imagine we have that all here. Then we're going to add the constructor, which is we start with a class name, person, and then we write all the things that it expects, those parameters it expects. So it'll expect a name, it expects an age, it will expect weight, and it will also expect a height.
So a constructor is always inside of a class, right?
Yes, exactly. It's always going to be inside of the class. And it's typically right after the fields. It's going to be the first thing after the fields. And then inside that constructor, you're going to say this dot name equals name. All right. This is a little bit of a confusing part. So pay close attention here. What is this constructor saying? Well, the constructor knows about these parameters that you're passing to, okay? And it also knows about these fields, okay?
Okay.
So when I have a field called string name, the way to access that field, the way to say, okay, I want this field to be set something, to be created as something, is by using the keyword this. So let's give you just another example just to kind of like make sure that you understand.
Okay.
Let's say we had a class pen, and the pen just had a string color. Okay. And I want to create a constructor for pen. And the constructor actually doesn't take in anything. It just is. How do I access this pen's color? Do you have any ideas?
You could use this color.
This dot color, exactly. The reason why it's this, it's that, think about it. A class pen talks about all the pens. So every person, every pen, all of these objects are of a class, okay? When you want to get specific, you want to talk about, no, not just any person. I'm talking about this person's name. Or not just any pen, I'm talking about this pen's color. Then that's when you use this. So this means I'm not talking about all the classes or every single pen. I'm talking about this very specific pen that you want to explain. So then you would say, okay, this stop color can be, and you can just give it, whatever, blue. Because we're not passing in anything. So that can be a constructor on its own. In here, because we're passing in a name, it's taking this name.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, totally.
Okay, perfect. Now I know that for writing a constructor for the rest of this person, I'm just gonna erase the pen bit. For the rest of the person, it might seem like a little bit silly. It might seem like, oh, it's a lot of mechanical work, and like, why doesn't Java just do it for you? There is the real Java constructors can do a lot more than what we're doing here. So this is like the most basic use case of constructors. Once you learn this, you'll learn like other ways to use constructors, and it makes more sense. But to construct these basic ones, there's a lot of like IDE help for it as well. But let's just figure out the rest of it. So if we want to talk about this person's age, it's going to take in this age. And just so you know, like this can be a different like name. If we say weight in kilos, we could write this person's weight, because we haven't changed the fields. We haven't changed the fields part. So this person's weight is weight in kilos. So the second part of our equation always needs to match these parameters that we're taking in. The first part of our equation needs to always match the field's name that we're taking in, because we're talking about this instant.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah? Okay. So tell me, if I had the field as height, let's change this up a little bit. If I change the field name to be just be height 1. This is the 1. And if I made the parameter be called height 2, how would I write the last bit of the constructor?
It would be this dot height 1 equals height 2.
Yes, exactly. Now you can't actually name a field like height 1 and height 2 like this, but for the sake of like argument, I think we can say. And the reason for that is that, remember, this is talking about the class. It's talking about this instance of the class. So it cares about its fields. The fields are kind of like the class's properties. Like a person just has a height 1. A person just has a name or an age or whatever. This bit, you're just saying, hey man, I'm gonna get a bunch of data and I'm going to use that data to be set somewhere. So I'm gonna delete the pen bit. So now what we wrote with like the new person, her font, whatever, all these things, that new this line right here, Java will say, oh, okay, you're trying to create a new person. To create a new instance of a class, I need to go to the constructor. So then I go to the constructor, and oh, you look like you're passing in a string to me. Okay, so I know what to do with that. Looks like you're passing an int. I know what to do with that, and then a double and a double, and I know how to handle those things. Does this all make sense?
It's all clear. It all makes sense.
Perfect. All right. Since this was like quite a bit of information and kind of hard, we have some homework. So maybe we can do homework piece for next time. Are you ready?
Yes, my favorite part.
I'm so glad. Okay, so a new study has shown that we can build paper planes which humans can fly on. So that's crazy. So like paper planes. Do you ever play with paper planes, Irfan?
Yeah, sometimes I like it, please.
Excellent. All right. Well, typically they're a lot smaller to take humans, but this one they can take humans. And the important pieces of information about a paper plane is its speed, its owner's name, um, whether it can fly internationally, and how many passengers it can carry. Um, so these are the important pieces of information about paper planes. What I would like you to do for homework is create this, I guess, represent this information about paper planes. I want you to represent it as data using what we have learned. So I want the information about paper planes to be represented as data in code. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm so excited to do it.
Excellent. Once you've done the representation, the second part of the problem set is make an example, create an example or an instance of your favorite paper plane for Santa Claus, because he might bring you one.
Oh, I hope so.
Fantastic. All right, that's all for today. I'm just gonna write the main important things that we learned. So we learned about classes. We learned about the keyword new and the keyword this. And we also learned about fields, objects, and constructors. This was a very heavy class, but you did fantastic. So good job. All right, bye, Irfan.
Bye.